You are now listening to Handsome Reads. Hey, what is the scene, loved one? Is your boy, 𝐶𝐾𝐒 Obasi, welcoming you back to another trip through the Army of Sin universe. Something that has been playing on my mind a lot is self-mastery. For me, the crazier the world seems to get, is the more I realize that I need to continue to become even more of a master of myself. I like to play a little game sometimes, as I find myself in different scenarios. And for me, the winner of the game is always the one who remains the most composed. So, try it out. You're already a winner in my book. Right. Remember, our last episode was a to be continued. So let me continue. This one promises to be a wild one. So get yourself situated and let's have a good one. This episode is set in Dallas, Texas. The angel Duma landed at the doorstep of the main house in silence. Folding his wings about his body just under his chin in a rare display of angelic flexibility, he walked through the wooden door as if it never existed. There would be no alarms raised, no trumpet to herald his arrival, for he was silence and death encased in one. Raising his forearm, he stared at the name and address that had been scrawled into his skin mere hours ago. Kenneth Brock of 666 𝐘𝐎𝐿. Leaving no footprints in his wake, he flowed down the corridor, the smell of food directing his path until he came to a large doorway leading left. Through this doorway, wisps of dark blue leaked out into the hall where he stood, labored breathing reaching his ears. Duma blinked slowly, reopening his eyes to uncork the tiny flask that had materialized in his hand. Then, he whispered, eyes glowing in the soft darkness of the hallway, the white and black halves of his eyes separated by a thin, vertical line of red. As commanded, the dark blue wisps shot into the small flask until no trace of them remained in the air. Replacing the small cork, the angel walked into the room, sidestepping several carelessly strewn food boxes. A man lay on the ground, his movements lethargic, even as he attempted to shove a handful of marshmallows into his mouth. Reaching down, Duma gripped the food addict by the back of his collar, hauling him unceremoniously into the air. The other man's face was a mask of anguish as he thrashed in an attempt to free himself, his entire being focused on the almost empty pack of marshmallows. Knocking over glasses and plates alike, Duma spread his wings to their full reach before using the flat of his palm to slap the mortal in his hand across the face. "Are you Kenneth Brock?" Lucidity filtered into Kenneth's face, fear flooding it as he stared into a pair of eyes too unique to be natural. From left to right, those eyes were pitch black, dotted by white vertical half-moons separated by a thin line of brightest red. Behind the other man's shoulders were a pair of wings spread wide. His face was smooth, with a gently curved chin, yet the ease with which he held Kenneth suspended was enough to inspire fear. The sound of the slap reverberated throughout the kitchen, the force of it producing a tiny cracking sound in Kenneth's neck. Breathing past the taste of blood in his mouth, Kenneth fought to hear over the ringing of his ear. "Are you Kenneth Brock?" the angel asked again. "Yes," Kenneth replied. "Good. I am the angel Duma, also known as the angel of the silence of death. What? Death. Death has come for you, mortal. But why? I have so much still to do. Oh my God, I'm going to be sick. You bear the touch of gluttony. And judging by this scene, Duma replied, indicating with his free hand, you are near death. Duma felt no sympathy for the mortal in his hand, the side of his face bearing a red handprint over the pale flesh. Dropping the man, Duma folded his wings back beneath his chin before turning to make his way into the wide corridor, fitted with various waiting chairs and gold-framed pictures. Behind him, the sound of smacking lips and torn wrappers wafted into the space in which Duma stood. Reaching to his waist, he drew ashes from a small pouch. Eyes glowing once more, he blew on the ashes, speaking the Latin word for shadow as he exhaled. From the falling ashes, black smoke began to link each molecule together, growing in size until a slender column stood before him. Angel, a feminine rasp greeted from within the column of smoke. Go to your liege, Duma replied in greeting. Inform him that another sin has been activated, he continued, throwing the small vial containing the dark blue tendrils collected earlier. A hand covered in black smoke snagged the vial before secreting it away as the voice spoke once more. He is not my liege. Tell him he will be in my debt. A debt which I shall collect one day, soon, Duma replied, disregarding her correction as he turned to re-enter the room where Kenneth Brock lay as he was initially found. Taking a seat next to where Kenneth lay suffocating on food, Duma took the mortal's hand into his own. No one deserved to die alone. Oh putain! A French curse word broke the quiet of the hospital room. Quiet! A voice hissed. We came here to offer support, came a strained whisper. Yeah, but look at her face. Lino's thick Portuguese accent heard over the beeping and hissing of the machines. And Mona. Sweet Mona. What about Mona? Evangeline asked, eyes snapping open, one focusing in on Andre and Lino, where they stood near the foot of her bed. She could barely see through one eye, feeling as though she was staring through an all-white curtain. And why can I only see out of one eye? She demanded. Andre wrung his hands together, unable to meet her gaze. Lino was not far off, clearing his throat as he, too, looked everywhere but at Evangeline. My darling, the head photographer choked out. You and Mona were victims of a kidnapping. The French police suspect it was in connection with black market organ harvesting. Organ harvesting? Where is Mona, Andre? Lino, where is she? Lino looked down at her finally, before raising his arm to point. No, 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 Evangeline whispered, staring at who lay in the direction of his finger. Mona lay in bed 2 feet away from Evangeline's vantage point. The side of her head that Evangeline could see was clean shaven, save for the bandage running from just above the temple to over her ear. Her cheeks shined in the soft light from some kind of ointment they had administered for the bruise on her face. What caused Evangeline's field of vision to swim, however, was the tube that ran from just below another wrap of gauze running around her neck. Turning away, She felt the beginning of something tearing down her left flank before Lino's large hand pushed on her shoulder gently to restrain her. "Get off of me," she hissed. "She hasn't awakened yet, so there's nothing we can do but wait," Andre comforted. Evangeline flopped back into bed, knowing she was too weak to fight both Lino and Andre. Instead, she turned her head to the left, willing her best friend to breathe on her own. "What's the extent of our injuries?" Mona suffered the majority of her injuries from some sort of fall. "Police haven't been allowed in yet since both of you were unconscious, but as soon as you're strong enough to talk, please let us know." When when is the next shoot?" she asked after a pause. "How long do we have to recover?" "We have more important issues to discuss," Andre replied softly. "Let us see how you feel after they release you," he replied with a pat on her hand. A door opened with a hiss behind them. Lino's body whipped around in response to the sound of the door opening, as Andre crowded closer to the bed, hand sliding beneath his tan long-sleeved shirt to palm a weapon. Evangeline's head position never changed, eye resting solely on her manager and best friend. "How are we, doctor?" the short, friendly nurse from earlier said, ushering in two men. These are members of her modeling agency. "Gentlemen, this is Evangeline's family physician. He has come to carry her to a more secure location." "Where?" Lino asked, shoulders still stiff as he stared not at the doctor, but at the taller, muscular man that stood slightly to the left. "Is the Portuguese with you?" came a mental question floating through her mind. "Yes," Evangeline answered aloud, mouth going dry at the silly menace of the question. The little girl inside of her jumped for joy the instant Mr. Donoma's voice flowed into her mind. "Somewhere safe," Henri answered the other man's question. "She will still have phone contact. If she so—" "Mona comes," Evangeline interrupted. "Of course," Henri replied smoothly for all to hear, while mentally he replied, "Do not ever interrupt me again, my dear." "Are you okay with this, E?" Andre asked, speaking up for the first time. Swallowing past the lump in her throat at Henri's reprimand, Evangeline replied, "Yes, Andre, we're safe now. The safest we can possibly be." "Good. You call me the minute you feel good enough to talk," Andre replied with a kiss. The door opened and closed with that now familiar hiss, as Andre and Lino took their leave, escorted by the friendly nurse, leaving Evangeline alone with her guardian physician. "You!" she greeted in a shaky voice, thick with emotion. The rush of adrenaline leached from her body. "Me," Mr. Donoma greeted, taking a seat on her bed before removing a burgundy fedora, his chocolate blazer flaring as his weight rested on the mattress. "What happened?" she asked, knowing that she would finally get the truth. "Your friend lost a lung and a kidney. They also partially cut her throat. From you, they took a chunk of liver, a kidney, and an eye. Hence the bandage I am now removing," Henri finished, unwrapping the gauze covering a portion of her face. Even with the lights within the hospital recovery room lowered, Evangeline immediately felt her uncovered eye reacting to the exposure. Closing back the eye, she squinted, feeling the skin both above and below pulling slightly. A mirror, please. Drawing an oval in the air, Henri manipulated the molecules until a mirror materialized. Will you help me find the ones responsible? Evangeline bit out after a pause as she stared at the reflection of her face. Her eyes, now mismatched, with an arctic blue iris separating a long scar running through her eyebrow down to the middle of her cheek. Invisible to her own eyes, lime green tendrils of smoke poured out of her pores. Sire, Aleski called from near the door as the tendrils slid beneath his clothes and near the bottom of the glass door. Sire, he called again, voice strained as he fought his own hand approaching his face, fingers wrapped around the handle of his combat knife. Gripping her chin, Henri locked eyes with her, drawing her into the hypnosis of his own. Sleep, he commanded, catching her limp body as the lime green smoke extinguished. Aleski, are you well? He called over his shoulder. Da, the big man replied, spiriting away the combat knife. Then carry that one down to the car and return for us. Crossing on long legs, Aleski unplugged the wires connecting Mona to various machines before lifting her to his chest, attaching a bag valve mask as he left. They rode the elevator down to the lower car park in silence, Aleski standing in the entrance as Henri cradled Evangeline's slumbering weight against his chest. Stepping off first, the aide turned with his arms outstretched. What is it? Henri asked. You have a guest, sire, the taller man replied with a jerk of his head. Very well. Handle her with care, he replied before handing her over to his aide. His dress shoes scrunched on the thin layer of gravel. His dress shoes scrunched on the thin layer of gravel before smoothing out to a steady rhythm as he walked between the rows of parked cars, standing with his back turned to any curious eyes coming out from the elevator. He waited in silence. From the length of a shadow he cast, a dark figure floated out to stand before him, wisps parting to reveal the gorgeous curve of Lady Zenobia's face. Greetings, warrior queen. Greetings, angel, she offered in that husky tone of hers. I bring you news and a location, as well as a message from the Silent One. I am listening, Henri replied. Do you recognize this? The shadow asked, producing the tiny vial Duma had entrusted to her. So the plot thickens, Henri thought to himself, before smiling genuinely for the first time in a long time. Why, hello, gluttony. End of episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode, my friends. And I look forward to seeing you at our next appointed time. Continue taking exceptional care of yourself. Exceptional care of yourself. We're not talking about half measures. We're not talking about just getting by. I need you to take exceptional care of yourself so that we could do this again. Okay? Until next time. And as always, love and light.